Ready to go.
Okay. Hi, my name is Chip Chisholm, and I play El Sapo de Tempesto on Nightmare Theater. We probably started around 1965, 1966. No, I'm kidding. It was probably in the early 2000s where my friend Mike Inslee and I had talked about it for years. We always grew up watching horror hosts, and we really loved it, and we always wanted to do it. And one day, we didn't have anything better to do, and we said, let's do it. So I had this costume. He had a slightly different costume, and we just started shooting some stuff. And that's how we started. And I would probably say that was maybe 2001. Well, El Sapo de Tempesto is the manservant to the famous man about town and table tennis legend, the Baron Mondo von Doren. And my primary job is finding movies. And I never seem to get that right. And I always have to come up with a crazy story for why I don't have the movie. And that's usually... Yeah, all those stories are true, by the way. I don't make any of that up. That's really stuff that happens to me. I really go through all that stuff I'm talking about. And so it's nothing is made up there. It's all hand to God, honest truth. Well, we all get together and we select the movies we want to do for that season, and we select a short we want to do for that season. And our episodes follow like a formula, I guess you could call it, where the first segment is the Baron and Mittens talking about something. It could be a TV show that happened in the 60s or the 70s, or a commercial or some type of cultural phenomenon. And then the Baron notices the camera and introduces the show, and I come in without a movie and I have to explain where I've been, and then I go find a movie. And then our episodes take the form where first couple of segments, we find some interesting trivia on the movie. And one example is this year we're doing a movie called The Disappearance of Flight 412. And it turns out that the guy who did the music also wrote the music for Hawaii Five-0. So we try to find a neat link and you won't hear that on Svengoolie, I promise you. You won't hear that on any other horror host. We find interesting trivia that no one else talks about. And then we have a few like episode specific bits, and then it launches into some crazy product that I might invent. And then we wrap it up at the end with usually me getting comeuppance, and it ends with some threat of violence against me. Oh, comedy influence. Wow, that's a difficult question to answer. It's probably classic sitcoms from the 50s, such as Car 54, Where Are You? Or The Honeymooners, or Ernie Kovacs. But for me, it's also a lot of old-time radio shows like Jack Benny, for example. I love that. And the way we try to do things here is, when Jack Benny did his comedy, back in those days, the comedian usually got the laugh. But Jack Benny wrote it, so he was the target of all the laughs. And so I like Mike to be the Baron to be the straight man, and me to be the target. So we both have them. And then you got in the 80s, the young ones and that kind of stuff. But who inspires me these days? Well, my wife, for one, the juvenile authorities, they got a stake in what I do. But I think probably a lot of old people that aren't producing things anymore, but I still watch them. Like David Letterman's a big influence on me, and he's still a big part. I wouldn't say he's a big part of my life, because that implies that I'm peeking in his window or stalking him. But he's a big influence on me, and he's probably the one person who shaped what I find to be funny, and still do. I mean, he's still shaping me to this day. If I wanted to get the viewer into Nightmare Theater, the episodes I would recommend are unfortunately ones we can't show anymore, like Plan 9 from Outer Space or Alien Dead. But I think this year, if they'll check out Manos, The Hands of Fate, I think they'll really like that one. And if they check out Shriek of the Mutilated this season, they're really gonna like that one. But for one that we've already done, I'd say either Werewolf of Washington or Dementia 13 really captures us at what I'd say is probably our best. Hi, my name is Chip, and I play El Sapo. And if you're bored one night and you have nothing better to do, check out Season 4 of Nightmare Theater, coming to a TV station near you.
My name's Julio Diaz. I am the curator on Nightmare Theater. I got involved with Nightmare Theater because I am in actually real life the curator of the Merrill Movie Museum, which is a real collection that is owned by some folks here in Pensacola, Florida, that I manage. We do some public exhibits from time to time, and appear every week on Nightmare Theater showing a new item from the collection. Well, I don't really do a whole lot of acting on the show. I more or less am myself. Every once in a while, I do get a line or two or get a joke or something like that. But most of the time you see me on the show, you're just seeing me more or less being myself, talking about things that we're bringing onto the show to show from the history of movies and from movie making. Every once in a while, I'll throw a little joke in, but most of what I do is actually improvised. It's not scripted. I've loved this kind of horror host show since I was a kid. I grew up watching Creature Feature on Channel 44 in Tampa, Florida with Dr. Paul Bearer, who was kind of a legendary horror host. So when I was asked by my friends Mike Ensley and Chip Chisholm and Lemmy Cruz to be part of this, I was very excited to get a chance to join. In terms of deciding what to bring on the show, I kind of look over what movies we're going to be showing each week and try to find something that might fit in with the film, either because it evokes something from the film, or on the rare occasion we've actually had things that were involved in the actual film that we're showing, or maybe that involve an actor or a producer, in a lot of cases a makeup artist that worked on the film. And then if there's not a real connection, every once in a while I just look for something that's cool that I think the audience is going to enjoy. I'm a big fan of Plan 9 from Outer Space. This season we're doing Nosferatu, which is just an all-time classic. It's one that if you've ever taken a film class, you've watched in film class, that there's techniques that are pioneered in that film that are still being used in film today. And parts of that story that are still being used in film today. That is really the original Dracula film. So it really is a seminal film. I'm very excited we're getting to show that this season. I'm Julio Diaz. I'm the curator on Nightmare Theater. Watch us right here on your public television station.
Hey, I'm Mike Ensley, and I play the Baron here on Nightmare Theater. We started the show in 2001. It was, poorly timed. It was we premiered a month after September 11th, essentially. But hopefully we gave people something to laugh at in that time. But we started in my wife has always been super supportive of the show. Her father owned a fishing cabin out by the beach, and we first started doing our first episodes out there. It was a vacant place. We were just set up, and we had some lights from a home improvement store that we put on poles. We had a camera sitting on a chair on some books, and that's how we shot the first episodes of Nightmare Theater. Eventually, Chip, my partner in this, since the beginning, El Sapo, he moved into an apartment and had an extra room, and so we set up in that room. We took some material. I used to work in printing, and we had some film that we used to make plates and for printing things, and that film was highly flammable. So we decided to spray paint it and tack it up on the walls and then light candles. And luckily we didn't die, but it still was a way to do it. We made it look like stone. We just kind of put it all together ourselves, and that's kind of how we started. In the old days, we never had scripts. We always improvised everything. And then when we came here to WSRE to start working on shows, we started writing scripts. Chip generally breaks everything down, and then I go in and kind of add some more jokes or change some stuff that, change character voices and that kind of thing. And so that's kind of how we write. It's collaborative. We collaborate on the computer mainly, and then we get to the finished script that we bring to the set here and get the shows done. Well, obviously being on WSRE has made a whole lot of difference. When Chip and I started, it was just he and I, pretty much. Our families would help out every once in a while. They would do something, to help with the show and that sort of thing. But it was mostly just Chip and I doing it. We would outline out our episodes, write some bits, go and shoot all the bits, and then I would work in at that time, what's the program? Pinnacle Studio was this program I was working in. That was a long time ago. And I had a PC and I had a camcorder that would let me capture movies through the camcorder. So I had to run everything through there. I had no way to edit the movie completely on the computer. It just, at that time, the computer wasn't big enough to hold an entire movie. So what we would do is I had a 3/4-inch tape machine that came to me in a nefarious sort of way from the guy who now produces our show, Brent Burton. He found us a 3/4-inch tape machine that fell off the back of a truck. And so I would go through, I would do the movie, I would hit the pause button on the 3/4 inch machine, hook up the camcorder that had all of our bits that I have exported back out to the camcorder, slip those in, and then pause again, and then start the movie again. So those first episodes are pretty rough, but it didn't matter because we were having fun, and that's all we wanted to do anyway. Eventually, when we got here to WSRE, we have an amazing crew. Everybody here has been super supportive of us, and so that makes it a lot easier on us because we can focus on the writing and the acting rather than having to spend all of my Sundays editing an entire episode that would take me about 8 to 10 hours to edit. So yeah, we've definitely come a long way since we started, and the show keeps getting better and better, I think. We've come a long way.
Perfect.
Who's running around?
That's timed out well. And then
in the first place, Roger Corman was notoriously bad about this. If you read his autobiography and several of the other biographies, it all mentions that Roger just never felt it was that big a deal. He didn't know these movies were going to live on. He figured he'd show them in a few drive-ins and they'd disappear forever. So luckily, thank you, Roger. We really appreciate you for leaving those movies out there. But a lot of other movies were made regionally, and people just didn't know how to copyright them. I guess the most famous one would be Night of the Living Dead, because Plan 9 from Outer Space, but that's a whole other story. We won't talk about that one today. But Night of the Living Dead is probably the most famous. I actually got to meet George Romero once, and he said, "Yeah, we really messed that up. You just keep playing it as much as you can." So hopefully in a future season here, we're going to see Night of the Living Dead on Nightmare Theater. Well, the Baron, Mondo Von Doren, he's middle management in hell. That's kind of his job. He's not like a guy that's done, his biggest thing that he accomplished in his career was he introduced New Coke. That was one of his big things that got him kind of noticed by other people. But he's been given this horrible task of running this television station in hell, and it's just not. There's nothing to show, and then the only person he can count on to get him movies to show on this station to keep his bosses happy is El Sapo, and you know how that goes. The kind of movies that El Sapo brings us are just the dregs of society, the dregs of the film world, the bottom of the barrel stuff that you scrape out and you hope somebody will watch. I mean, I'm sure several of these movies are probably considered war crimes. Since time immemorial, Chip Chisholm and I have been friends. I think we met in 1988, if I recall correctly. And we've done a lot of things together over the years. We've always done creative projects together. We used to publish a zine, a magazine of our own. We were in professional wrestling for a short time. I was the wrestler, obviously. Chip was my manager. He's not sturdy enough to get into a wrestling ring for real. We've just done a lot of things over the years. We had a radio show when we were in college, and we've always just tried to be creative and different than everybody else. And so when the idea, we've talked about, we grew up on some horror hosts. There was never really a horror host in Pensacola when I was a kid, which was sad to me. But I did get to see people like Sir Cecil Creep, who was on the Nashville network. He was their horror host. I got to see, Elvira, obviously, in her big run. But as I got older, I started getting into horror hosts. And when the internet came along, I was able to look up and find information about all these hosts. So that kind of, and Chip was also interested in the same kind of thing. And we have the same kind of comedy influences, from David Letterman to SCTV to Monty Python to the Andy Griffith Show to The Simpsons, And one of the things we still have to ask ourselves, as many shows do now, is have The Simpsons done this before we do a bit, because they've done everything now. So that is a challenge. But those are our favorite kind of shows. Those are the comedies that really, I'm a huge Andy Kaufman fan. So anything we can do to get a reaction out of the audience, that's what we're going for. I think Mittens is in many ways the everyman of our show. I think he's a constant commenter, even though he doesn't ever say a word. If you watch him, some of his expressions through that mask, Lemmy, who plays Mittens, are incredible. His hand gestures, everything he does it's just icing on the cake. It's just so gorgeous to watch when you watch the show. And one of the things about it is that Chip and I never get to see what he's doing, because a lot of what he does, we tell him certain things to do and stuff, and kind of but most of it's improvised. And so we never get to see it until we see the finished product. And so it's always a big shock, and we're always laughing at what Mittens is doing in the corner over there. Who have we met? Well, one of the films that we have coming up this season is Warriors of the Wasteland, aka The New Barbarians, and one of the people in those films is Fred the Hammer Williamson. And I'm lucky enough to be acquaintances with Fred the Hammer Williamson, who, of course, most famously was probably in MASH. He was in the original movie, Robert Altman's MASH, but he did a lot of sort of blaxploitation films in the 70s, really great movies. And we got to talk to him about some of the films and interview him a little bit about working with Bruno Mattei, who directed that film, and working in Italy and how that was. And so that's been really fun. Jackie Naaman Jones, who is in the first episode of this upcoming season 4, was the child in Manos, The Hands of Fate, widely considered the worst film of all time. And Jackie's been great to talk to about movies and all that sort of stuff. And there's been other people that we've run into from time to time that either are connected via they're actually in the film or they worked on the film, and it's really fun to always talk to them about it. I think I would start them with our debut episode now, which is A Bucket of Blood. I think it's such a wonderful, funny film, and I think our bits around it are also really, really funny. The other one I'm going to mention, of course, is the always in copyright limbo Plan 9 from Outer Space. I think it's one of our best episodes. I think everyone should see that one, and hopefully soon they will again be able to see that episode. But this season, I think Manos is going to be one that people are really going to enjoy. I'm also fond of Shriek of the Mutilated. I think there's a lot of good and a lot of funny in that one. And we get to see the return of Lightfoot Spivey, one of our favorite characters from last season, who's going to return. He's sort of a backwoods kind of guy. Hey, I'm Mike Inslee, and I play the Baron Mondo Von Doren, and I want you to make sure and tune in for Season 4 of Nightmare Theater here on your public television station. Hey, I'm Mike Inslee, the Baron Mondo Von Doren from Nightmare Theater, and I want to invite you to watch Season 4 of our show, whether you watch it on television on your favorite public television station, or if you stream it via the PBS Passport app. Just watch us. We really need the attention. Hey, I'm Mike Inslee, the Baron Mondo Von Doren from Nightmare Theater, and I want to invite all of you to watch Season 4 of our show, whether you watch it on your local PBS station, your public television station, or the PBS app. Just give us some attention. We just really need it. We're really empty inside.
The focus is like right here, so if you could lean back, put it right there, and then just kind of lean into it.
Okay.
Yeah. Which makes it look even funnier.
Hi.
It doesn't look bad.
You don't have to do that.
Praise the-
Yeah, that's good.
Hi. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, go for it.
Hi. I'm Lemmy Cruz. I play Mittens the Werewolf on Nightmare Theater. I started out with the gang 2002, going to see a little thing they were putting on called Shocktoberfest. Started chatting with the guys and everything, realized we were all into the same, weird and crappy stuff, and got to hang out with them. We became buddies and just hung out. And the Baron's wife dropped a roll of tickets on my foot, and I was wearing flip-flops for some ungodly reason. Almost broke my toe, and we've been fast friends ever since.
So how do you prepare, tell the viewers about Mittens?
Before we do a season, it takes me about 4 weeks. I go into deep meditation.
Could you say, before I go into character for Mittens, just make sure we say the Mittens thing.
Okay.
That's all
All right. Sorry. Before we go into each season, I, as Mittens, go on sabbatical. I meditate. I have a specialized diet, mostly just corn nuts and brown rice. But I have to think about every move I make as Mittens because, as we know, I'm the linchpin of the show. That's a lie. I just try not to sweat. That's what I do. I just try not to sweat, pretty much. Who inspires me comedically? I think I really liked actually watching Nightmare Theater before I was a part of it because I'm a big fan of old comedy duos. Laurel and Hardy. Can we do that again?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, for sure.
Laurel and Hardy. Cornbread and Skillet.
Ingen Lake.
BJ and the Bear. I'm going to say that, yeah. Who inspires me comedically? I love old school comedy duos. Abbott and Costello. BJ and the Bear. Jake and the Fat Man. You know, the classics, stuff everybody can relate to. Yeah. I hate Leonard. He's annoying. I actually think he's a obtuse version of me. I think it's how he's written because I'm a know-it-all. So, pretty sure. But he's got great hair and a great mustache. One of my favorite episodes is Werewolf of Washington because everybody got to take their turns and, have the spotlight for a little bit, kind of like when they were shooting Young Frankenstein. Everybody got to take turns being the straight man, and so it was pretty fun. And us as a crew are like three of the classic clowns. You have the Baron, who's the white face, El Sapo, who's Auguste, and Mittens is Tramp. So we complete the classic. I just pulled a Mitch McConnell. Yeah. Just.
You call me a goose.
I'm sorry, guys. Even though I don't like that guy, I felt real bad when it happened to him. I know that's bad, but I just brain wiped. You okay, Mitch? You okay, Mitch? You need to go get in the car? Probably, yeah.
Probably.
Which question were we on?
Yeah.
One of my favorite episodes to work on was Werewolf of Washington because we all got to take turns being the straight man. And like they did in Young Frankenstein. If I was going to pick an episode to watch, two episodes that stand out are Werewolf of Washington and Bucket of Blood. Because they're both actually pretty good crappy films. And I love Bucket of Blood, and everything that we got to do during those was pretty memorable. Hey, check us out on the PBS app, Nightmare Theater. We'd love to see you when we see you. Hi, I'm Lemmy Cruz. I play Mittens the Werewolf on Nightmare Theater. Come check us out. Yeah, that's most you'll ever hear me say. Okay. Bye. Go. Get.
What about the
Leave.
PBS app?
Oh, PBS app. Hi, I'm Lemmy Cruz, and I play Mittens the Werewolf on Nightmare Theater. Check us out on the PBS app or your local station. We'd love to see you. You won't see us. Hi, I'm Lemmy Cruz. I play Mittens the Werewolf on Nightmare Theater. This handsome fella. Tune in to the PBS app or your local station, and may all your dreams be nightmares.
Well, hey, 1 out of 3 ain't bad.
Can you do a fantastic clap? That was fantastic.
That's fantastic. Oh,
And he plays Sapo's
got the second one too.
Yeah, play Sapo's parents. I mean,
So let's start with, we are rolling.
We're
Got you
rolling.
in focus. Let's start out with you introducing yourself to the viewer. Remember, don't look at me. This is the viewer. Don't look here. Try to use my questions at the beginning of your answer, and tell everybody who you are and how you're involved with Nightmare Theater.
Hi, I'm Brent Burton, and my attorneys have advised me to answer questions as briefly and succinctly as possible. I am the executive producer, erstwhile, of Nightmare Theater. In the beginning, before the beginning of Nightmare Theater, I actually was involved through a friend of my wife's, a coworker of hers. We actually had introduced her to Mystery Science Theater 3000. She used to come over to our house on Friday nights and watch bad sci-fi movies with us. And she was, at the time, was dating a gentleman who later was to become her husband, Chip Chisholm, who plays El Sapo de Tempesto, and we became good friends with Chip. And one day I was working at the local cable company. I actually was assigned the task of programming our least access channel, which is generally where you see the 1-800-GINSU knife programs. And Chip approached me about buying time on that channel. I said, I can get you some really cheap time in the fringe time, late Saturday night, for example. He says, perfect. We want to do a horror show, me and my friend Mike. And so I met this very tall guy in the parking lot of a local fast food restaurant and gave him a 3/4-inch video tape recorder, specifically to be able to put his program on our least access channel. And that program, of course, was Nightmare Theater. In October of 2001, we went live, not live, on the air with the program. And a couple of months later, they wanted to do a Christmas-themed episode. And they said, but we need somebody to play Santa. And Mike says, I've got a Santa Claus suit. And so I was an extremely skinny Santa Claus for my first on-camera appearance on the show 22 some odd and some very odd years ago. And the rest is history, sort of. The process of producing this series, well, at first it involved a lot of begging. When I came back to WSRE, of course, Mike and Chip hectored me relentlessly about getting the show produced at WSRE and on the air. And I would approach the programming committee wizards and say, hey, I've got these friends who have this show. They'd love to produce it on WSRE. And they'd look at me blankly and quickly change the subject. But eventually I beat them down, and in 2018 they agreed to put the program on the air, and we produced it for the first time in front of 3 cameras, teleprompters, full crew, in an actual professional type TV studio. And since that time we've been able to have it syndicated through NETA, which is a consortium of public television stations that distribute content nationwide, and we've been fortunate enough to have several other stations pick it up. And so now Nightmare Theater is inflicted upon households across the fruited plain. Well, as a matter of fact, I have played a number of different characters, some of them very brief walk-on parts, some of them a little bit more in depth. I actually had to learn lines and stuff. My first opportunity when we began producing the show for public television to play another character, I actually played a real-life human being. I played the great Criswell, the prognosticator who appears in Plan 9 from Outer Space, which once again, we're not sure if we have the rights to re-air that one, but I got the opportunity to play Criswell, and I think I did a masterful job personally, but and they liked it, so they gave me more characters to play in future episodes. Most notably, Werewolf of Washington, I played the Dr. Lester W. Sinclair, who was the moderator of the political debate between Mittens and the Baron. And Lester has appeared in subsequent episodes. He's kind of a cross between, I'd say, what was the analogy I used the other day? He's sort of a cross between. Okay, I'm going to have to stop and do that one over again.
You can just continue.
Yeah. Most notably, I sort of devised a character as a cross between William F. Buckley and Wile E. Coyote. Sort of a pompous, obnoxious, super genius, at least in his own mind. And he seemed to go over pretty well. So I've had the pleasure of playing him a number of times. Probably my favorite character, though, is one we have not had the opportunity to revisit, but I'm hoping we will in the future, is Kenny the Demon, who's actually a former classmate of the Barons in demonology school, a few centuries behind him. He's probably closer to like me as a normal human being, if you can call it that. The first film we actually did, the very first episode, we ended up not having the rights to continue broadcasting that one, so I won't even mention that one by name. However, I'm kind of fond of following things in order. Our Lost Pilot episode is Voyage to the Planet of the Prehistoric Women, which kind of sets up the whole premise of why the Baron was assigned this godforsaken role, literally, of being running the TV station in hell, why they don't have any movies, and sort of sets up the premise pretty well. As far as favorite episodes, and one that I like to point out as a personal favorite, it would be from the second season, Giant Gila Monster, which features a very funny vignette on the Gila Monster's journey to fame and then fall from fame and his redemption, and features a number of celebrities, including a mentor of mine, kind of an inspiration of mine, the great late Ralph Emery, country DJ and host of Nashville Now. And we actually got him to do a bit for the show, which made me very happy. Oh yeah, I'll mention Nick in the theme song.
So tell the viewers about the theme song.
Well, I'll tell you a little bit about the music of Nightmare Theater. Of course, there is our fantastic theme song written specifically for the program by the great Nick Flagstar, a local musician of some renown. Wrote and recorded that little ditty that you see at the very beginning of every episode. And I also might mention that my wife appears as one of the humans on the couch in the intro to the show every episode. Also, a long time back in the early days, a long time theme song of Nightmare Theater, which now is sort of the de facto running theme for the show, and also heard over the end credits. Stratospheric Mortuary theme by Johnny and the Shaman, which is I think pretty much a one-man band that used to perform here locally. I believe they're in California now, but that they sort of add that distinctive flavor to the show. A number of other recordings have been used in the show, some of which we've taken from the public domain, a few of which I've managed to cobble together with the help of friends and the spare kazoo here and there. But music is a very big part of the show, and we kind of sets the tone, so to speak, for a lot of the bits that we do. Hi, I'm Brent Burton, executive producer and occasional warm body on Nightmare Theater, and we want you to tune into the show on your local PBS station or public access station, or better still, stream it on the PBS app, Season 4, coming very soon to a handheld device near you. Hi, I'm Brent Burton, erstwhile executive producer of Nightmare Theater, and you can see our fine program on your local PBS station or on the PBS app, streaming anytime you want to see it. Season 4, right here. Hi, I'm Brent Burton, erstwhile executive producer of Nightmare Theater. Watch Season 4 of our fine program on your local PBS station, if available, or always available on the PBS app, streaming right here in your pockets.